You can get arrested for disorderly conduct. What are you doing? Ah! Arrest him! This video is brought to you by Squarespace! It's one thing to get involved in a fierce debate about who the greatest athlete in their field is, but the debate gets far more complicated when you lump them all together and argue over who is the greatest athlete of all time. That is a silly debate because they all play different sports, don't they?
Get set!
They'd be like, yeah, Roger Federer, greatest athlete ever. I mean, but he doesn't play football at all, does he? Or maybe he does, but he's probably shit. Frontrunners might include the obvious names: Muhammad Ali, Serena Williams, Usain Bolt, Michael Jordan, and Eddie the Eagle Edwards. But some sporting experts would include the name Joey Chestnut to that esteemed list of contenders. Joey is maybe not quite as universally known and respected as the other names on this list. He's a competitive eater, or professional gurgitator, is that really what they call it, who shoves vast quantities of food down his greedy gullet as quickly as possible. But the weird thing is that those nutty experts who hail Joey Chestnut as the greatest athlete of all time haven't just completely lost their marbles. They might actually have a point. And with that, welcome to a brand new episode of Brain Blaze, the new name for a channel that was previously known as Business Blaze and was never about business, so I changed the name. You're welcome, world. What happens here is Danny, the finest scriptwriter on YouTube, is going to, well, he already has, he's written me a script, I'm going to read it, and like I say, make it just a little bit more and then Sam afterwards, the finest memologist on all of the YouTube, is going to add in some of the finest vintage memes. That's how we do it here, and Squarespace make it possible. Thank you, Squarespace. Mwah! Let's get into it. Whenever we see a speed eating contest conveyed in a wacky screwball movie, it's usually presented as an opportunity for the morbidly obese character to step up to the plate and prove that he's good at something. I'm not sure, I don't know much about competitive eating, but I do know it's like, isn't it often skinny people? Because they just eat normally most of the time. And then it's like, well, I just got really good at eating fast. It's like, you don't have to be fat, that probably doesn't help. It's probably, your arms are probably slower getting up to your mouth because they're so big. Simon, don't fat shame! Cries everyone. I'm not fat shaming, I'm just like saying it's physics, isn't it? He may have spent the majority of the film getting taunted for his girth, but the audience will cheer when he makes swift work of 50 hot dogs and finally gets hailed as a hero when he walks away with the trophy. What sort of bizarre movie is this, Danny? But that's not usually how it goes down in real life. While professional gurgitators come in all shapes, is that really what it's called? Come in all shapes and sizes. The ones at the very top of the game are usually mean and lean eating machines who work out regularly and are in surprisingly good athletic shape. It's not just about having a super-sized belly. And there's a good reason why competitive eaters are happy to put in the training. There are cash prizes of up to $10,000 awaiting the winners of the biggest contests. And Joey Chestnut now has a reported net worth of around $2 million, generated from his victories and lucrative sponsorship deals. Well, isn't Tiger Woods a billionaire? I mean, I get it, like this is well paid, but it's like sports. I mean, I guess there are sports that are really well paid, like boxing, golf, tennis, football, I mean a lot. And then there's ones that aren't well paid, like competitive eating, curling, I imagine, discus. You know those ones that happen at the Olympics? They're low paid. Although I suppose like football, is football at the Olympics? I don't know, I know nothing about sports. Fascinating. I mean, it's completely unfascinating in every way to me. Brilliant, Simon. So you're making a video about sports, aren't you? Well done, big brain.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
But when did gorging yourself silly on junk food become such an acceptable sporting spectacle? Perhaps the first man to try and cook up a celebrity career from just eating ridiculous quantities of food was a 17th century farmer from Kent. That's where I'm from! By the name of Nicholas Wood, who would be immortalized in a poem by James Taylor called The Great Eater of Kent. Not that James Taylor. Brown-eyed girl, la 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 la. Is it brown-eyed? Yeah, it's brown-eyed girl. I was thinking, is it green-eyed girl? No, that doesn't make sense. And it is James Taylor who sings that song, right?
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
Show off the wonders of his bottomless stomach by getting through 60 eggs, several pies, and ample cuts of lamb without breaking out into a meat sweat. Also, this was the 17th century. I feel like people were hungry back then. Like, being fat, it was like, oh, you're rich. And nowadays, if you're fat, it's like, oh, you're just fat, aren't you? It's not like you see a fat person on the street, you're like, oof, they must be wealthy as they pound that 7th Big Mac. Nicholas ended up hiring poet and fan James Taylor as his manager to help elevate his career to the next level. Ah yes, maybe that's where I'm going wrong. Why aren't I more successful? Probably because I don't have a poet as my manager. But he had left this a little too late as they both ended up missing the gravy boat. By the time James Taylor got on board, all of Nicholas's teeth had fallen out after losing a fight with a gnarly piece of mutton shoulder. Holy, all of your teeth fell out from one bit? Just stop eating. Who's like, oh yeah, I lost 3 teeth, so I'll just carry on with this mutton, shall I? It's like, if I chipped my tooth even a little bit, I'd be like, alright, I guess I'm not going to eat this anymore. And now I've got to go to the dentist tomorrow. Brilliant. This kind of hampered his party piece, forcing him into an early retirement from the circuit. The idea very much fell out of favour over the next few hundred years, and the rise of professional competitive eating is a relatively recent phenomenon. The main issue was that most people around the world felt that they were doing quite well if they could put enough food on the table to avoid the whole family starving to death. Yeah, what was his name? James? No, Nicholas Wood. There are like people watching that and be like, I'm so hungry, and that guy's eating his 7th sheep. Like, for sake. You greedy Nick. You greedy. Give me your food, Nick!
Daddy, chill.
The very idea of tucking into an extravagant feast was the exclusive preserve of mad kings, unfathomably rich people, and upcoming YouTube personalities. Ah yes, mukbang or mukbang or however you say it. Very bizarre and I hate it. I'm like, why would I want to watch someone stuff crab into their mouth for like 3 hours?
You what?
This is so... And then there's the ASMR mukbang. It's like, yo. Move that microphone away from your mouth. Look, if I'm listening to a podcast and I can hear someone's mouth like gesticulating too much, I'm like, ooh, this podcast isn't for me. Even if it was about the greatest subject in the world, Star Trek, I'd be like, no, too many mouth noises.
Gay!
And then I discovered that that's actually a thing that people like. And then they'll do food. What is going on? Can you imagine all the little pieces of crab that are getting in the like grill on the microphone? You disgusting animals.
Disgusting!
For the most part, having a big belly was a status symbol more powerful than any personalized license plate.
Fat bastard, could I have my mojo, please?
But of course, all of that changed in the 20th century when you didn't need to be royalty to nosebag a slap-up meal at Burger King. And the 1970s witnessed the roots of the biggest competitive eating contest of them all, Nathan's hot dog eating contest, which is held annually on Independence Day at the Fast Food Corporation's original restaurant in Coney Island in Brooklyn. And before we hear about all of that, you're going to hear about something even greater, today's legendary sponsor. Square to the Space, also known as Squarespace. Yes! Are you an up-and-coming professional eater? What was it called? A gurgitologist or whatever? Yo! Well, you're gonna need a website to advertise your professional eating ability. This is way too niche. Squarespace are gonna be like, Simon, you're appealing to the 3 members of your audience who are actually professional eaters. And that's just not gonna get enough sales for Squarespace, is it, Simon? Is it, Simon? Reshoot the ad, boy! And I would have to do it. But fortunately, Squarespace is more than just websites for professional eaters, apparently. I'm not a professional eater, and my website, simonwhistler.com, made on Squarespace. It's got all links to my different channels and projects and podcasts and all of that kind of stuff that I do. And it looks, one of the coolest things was like, you know when you got to choose a background for your website? I found out you can embed a video. So I just grabbed one of my Mega Projects videos and it's always playing in the background. So you think that must look ugly as sin. You blur it out a little bit. You blur it out so it's always playing in the background. It looks really cool, especially for someone who makes videos. Again, this is probably too niche, but whatever you do, you can do it on Squarespace. Look, if you, I don't know, you want to start a blog? You want to start a blog about politics and piss off all of your friends and family? Squarespace is ideal for you. Or you could start a blog that people actually want to read. Squarespace make it very easy. Or you want to do a shop. You got something you want to sell? I don't know, like crab-filled microphones? Let's say this is all way too niche, but there's websites where you can buy stuff on the internet. You've got an idea for something? Well, Squarespace make it possible. Yes. Oh my God, I'm sure there are some things I have to talk about because so far this has been entirely ad-libbed. And I'm not sure Squarespace are gonna love that. So let's just hit some points. Okay, I did mention a blog. Boom. I did mention a shop. Boom. What else can you do on Square? Oh yeah, okay. So you're building your website, use a template if you want, or if you're a skilled design person, design it yourself, it's fully customizable. Woo! And you don't have to update it, you don't have to do any of that stuff, it's all very easy. Look, non-techie people, I am the most like non-techie, someone's like, yeah, someone, all you gotta do is go in there and do the HTML. I'll be like, oh, just that, huh? Just that. Have you looked at HTML? It's confusing as Squarespace is just like, you want to do something, just drag it and drop it over there. Easy. Or just use a template. Easier. Mailing podcasts? Yes. Mailing lists? Yes. Social integrations? Yeah, baby! And much more. 24/7 customer support, that's a nice thing. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/blaze. That's squarespace.com/blaze, and you'll save what? What? 10% on your first purchase of a website of a domain or a domain. Brilliant. Excellent. Joyous. Back to the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. The rules are pretty simple. Consume as many hot dogs and buns as you can within a time frame of around 10 minutes without succumbing to the dreaded Technicolor yawn. Projectile vomiting into the audience results in instant disqualification and reverses any hopes you had harbored of achieving gastronomic glory. Even today, many media outlets, including the New York Times, report that the history of the event stretches back much further to 1916, when 4 immigrants were in the queue at the brand new Nathan's hot dog stand in Coney Island and got into a fight over which of them was the most patriotic. This is the most American thing ever. What were you fighting over? Who's the most patriotic? That'd be like 2 people in Britain queuing up for tea, arguing over who loves the Queen the most. It will never happen because no one cares. And why would you be queuing for tea? Oh yeah, no, that makes sense, because we're British, we love queuing, and we love tea. Yes!
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
This was an argument that could clearly only be resolved by ascertaining which one of them could gobble down the most hot dogs. Alright, yeah, it's like, how do we... You're eating America's food, that's how we figure out who's most patriotic? The story doesn't really add up, though, as these 2 immigrants were meant to be the crooner Jimmy Durante and the father of actress Mae West, neither of whom were immigrants. Okay. Very easily debunked. The story was later revealed to have been made up for publicity purposes by the promoter of the real inaugural event in 1972, but competitive eating still wouldn't become a particularly big deal for a few decades yet, even after the brothers George and Richard Shea took over the publicity for Nathan's and first launched the official organization Major League Eating in 1997, which now hosts around 80 contests a year in North America. It was the arrival of a scrawny little competitor from Japan who really changed the game in 2001 and became the first celebrity superstar of speed eating. Not many people would have tipped the slender frame of Takeru Kobayashi as a likely champion, but on his rookie appearance at Nathan's hot dog eating contest, he stunned the field by instantly doubling the previous world record and scoffing down no less than 50 hot dogs and buns in 12 minutes. Takeru Kobayashi, you madman! It is crazy how, like, you know, it's that human limitation, like that brain thing, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, the record's like 25. If I'm really good, maybe I'll crack 27. So we'll be like, yo, maybe you could crack 50. People will be like, what, you smoking the crack? What are you talking about?
Exactly. Yes, I have smoked crack cocaine.
And then this Kobayashi dude comes along and he's like, boom, 50! Yeah! Because that's how he rolls. Becoming an overnight sensation, he went on to win 6 consecutive titles and still holds world records for fastest consumption of, among many other things, buffalo wings, lobster rolls, hamburgers, and cow brains. Oh, lovely. 57 in 15 minutes, brain food fans. Because I used to have a podcast called Brain Food. Very clever, Danny. I don't know if Danny knows about that podcast, but if he did, I mean, well done. Competitive eating had now gone supersize, and the Nathan's contests were broadcast on the sports network, ESPN, for the first time in 2003, drawing a peak of 2 million viewers in 2011. But Takeru had already gone a spoon too far by then. In 2007, he was diagnosed with arthritis of the jaw, and although he bravely competed in that year's contest while suffering in immense pain, he would go on to lose his crown to Joey Chestnut, a man who was destined for an even bigger portion of glory. Did the arthritis in his jaw has got to be to do with the competitive eating, right? Which is crazy. Isn't that, I don't know if it's a legend, but the guy was like, yeah, you should chew food 100 times before swallowing. Which I tried once, because I was like, how many times is 100? Tell you what, it's a lot, don't do it. And then he got like jaw cancer or something and died. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess you were wrong. Or it's like his digestive tract was in pristine condition, it's just his jaw was completely and then he died. Probably just an urban legend, chew food as much as you want. at least a little, okay? Takeru is no longer allowed to take part in the most prestigious events after refusing to sign the standard exclusivity deal in 2010, which would have prevented him from participating in any events not controlled by Major League Eating Organization. That sounds like super corrupt and bad, allegedly. Like, isn't that illegal? Aren't you making a cartel? Allegedly, in my opinion. Please don't sue me, you sound litigious. Although he was subsequently banned from the 2010 Nathan's contest, he still turned up as a spectator, but then got a bit carried away when his fans started chanting his name. In the spur of the moment, Takeru jumped onto the stage and started trying to eat hot dogs. He was arrested and charged with, yes, I'm waiting for what this could possibly be, obstruction of governmental administration, resisting arrest, trespassing, and disorderly conduct. You can get arrested for disorderly conduct? What are you doing? Arrest him!
What the hell is even that?
All charges were ultimately dismissed by the judge. Good, wise, but Takeru is still banned from MLE events today. And in what seems like a churlish way to treat the sport's first superstar, Nathan's has since removed all trace of Takeru from their wall of fame on the Coney Island boardwalk. That's a bit of a dick move, isn't it? Allegedly. California native Joey Chestnut is now the dominant force of competitive eating, and by quite some margin. Aside from one little blip in 2015 when he lost to Matt Stoney, Joey has won a staggering 14 of the last 15 annual titles to be held at Nathan's. He currently holds 51 Guinness World Records. Holy shit, albeit world records on a very similar theme but with a slightly different menu. Where does that count? It's like most lobster rolls eaten in 10 minutes. Most lobster rolls eaten in 9 minutes. Most crabs eaten in 9 minutes. It's like, you can't just do that. It's like most magic spoon eaten in 30 seconds. What are you up to, Joey? And most notably of all, he smashed the world record for hot dog consumption in 2021 when he got through 76 dogs and buns in 10 minutes. That is madness. That's not far off the 84 figure, which scientists from New York reckon is the absolute maximum number of hot dogs a human body is physically capable of consuming within that time frame. And this is why Joey Chestnut is held in some quarters as not just the single most dominant athlete in his field, but also the greatest athlete of all time. This is a stupid thing to measure, but should Joey be showered with quite so many accolades for taking part in what some might perceive as a nauseating and revolting and downright dangerous gluttony contest which shouldn't even be allowed to take place in the civilized world. Of course, it's not all about hot dogs. Across the US, Canada, Japan, and the UK, men and women are competing in hundreds of professional and amateur speed eating events every year. The dishes served up can include anything from oysters to donuts, from raw onions to cheese curd, from stinging nettles to deep-fried bull's testicles. But whatever happened to be on the menu, some critics argue that the sport is distasteful in its decadence. When there are an estimated 690 million people around the world who are undernourished, the very idea of staging such a contest smacks of Western gluttony. It really does, isn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of like those countries where it's like, yeah, we just built like a super mecha turbo oasis in the middle of the desert. Why? Just because we can, because you, nature. It's like one of those like ultimate dick moves. In their defense, the organizers of the events often donate huge sums of money to hunger charities. The MLE alone has donated tens of thousands of dollars to charity over the years, while Nathan's donates 100,000 hot dogs to food banks every Independence Day. That's cool, good for you. But the biggest complaint leveled against the sport, yeah, and it's also, I mean, yeah, it's a dick move, like whatever, but no one cares. And also it's not like, yeah, that guy ate 50 hot dogs that could feed 50 children in Africa. It's not how it works. I remember when I was a kid, my parents were like, don't forget to eat all the food on your plate. There are starving children in Africa. And I'm like, wait, I don't understand. How does me eating the food on my plate have any relation to what's going on in Africa?
I don't understand. I don't understand, bitch. I don't understand.
And of course there's no good answer to that, because it doesn't. But the biggest complaint leveled against the sport is that it's borderline self-abuse and comes packaged with several stacks of health risks. One of the biggest health hazards of all is the risk of choking to death, and this has tragically occurred several times during amateur contests held over the last decade, including a 20-year-old student who died speed eating pancakes, an Australian man who died speed eating pies, and a Denver man who died speed eating donuts. But it's important to emphasize the amateur status of these contests. The experienced professional competitive eaters put in the hard work. First, they prepare by drinking vast quantities of water to train their throats into swallowing enormous amounts without choking. They chew whole packets of gum at the same time to strengthen their jaw muscles. They train their bodies to suppress the gag reflex and avoid the embarrassment of technical yawn during a contest. They work hard on perfecting the chipmunking technique, which allows them to store excess food in their cheeks. Whatever you can store in your mouth before the timer runs out still counts as long as you swallow it within the next 30 seconds. That's clever. So this cheeky little technique can often prove to be the difference between triumph and defeat. And as we noted before, the professionals tend to work out and keep themselves in trim shape. Although it's never been scientifically proven, there's an argument that slimmer competitors hold a strong advantage over their bigger counterparts. The ultimate key to winning is to train your stomach to stretch out and make more room for the incoming banquet. The belt of fat theory suggests the excess visceral fat in your abdomen pushes against your stomach and restricts the ability to expand, so you're far more likely to lift the trophy if you have a lower body fat percentage. That's crazy, but it makes perfect sense.
Easy for you to say, skinny bitch!
While some still argue for an outright ban on the sport, it could be argued that many other sports involve pushing the human body way beyond natural endurance limits. Many sports are inherently dangerous, and pretty much all sports are equally as pointless. Completely and utterly pointless. Yes, agreed. Also, if you get a bad competitive eating, how about boxing? Because all that involves is people smashing each other in the head with their hands. It's like, what, MMA? Like, what the f***? I mean, I get it. I don't think it should be banned, but the idea of banning competitive eating while these other sports exist is insane. So it seems a bit unfair to single out competitive eating just because it grosses some people out. Participation, I bet boxing and MMA grosses more people out because holy shit. It's like, what you did to that man's arm? MMA, not boxing. It's like, but MMA is insane. That's the one with the octagon, right? Where they just go in and beat the shit out of each other. It's wild. So what is this? Yeah, we legalize street fighting. We put people in a cage. Oh my god. Welcome to the dystopian future where that is a televised sport. Participation is entirely voluntary, and you don't have to watch contests if it's not your kettle of ketchup and mustard. It might just be an idea not to try this at home, and there is possibly a good argument for a ban on local amateur events where the contestants have little experience of what they're doing, just as it would be inadvisable to host an amateur ski jump contest down in the car park of the local pub. I wouldn't want to watch competitive eating myself, I'm not particularly sporty anyway, but watching a professional gurgitator go about his or her business would be way down on my own personal list of things to do to watch out for the next Olympic Games. I'd put it just a couple of places below competitive sneezing. Oh my god. But spare a thought for the real victim in all of this, the competitor's toilet. Savage. Although the professionals are usually quite cagey on the subject of what happens after the cheering stops, offering up only the occasional clues such as it's not pretty, the Canadian speed eater Peter Czerwinski was recently happy to go into a little more detail on his YouTube channel. With the aid of a few props, a large bowl and a big bag of marshmallows, Peter was able, wait for it, to visually convey the alarming state of his overflowing toilet on the day after an event. You really wouldn't want to be his cleaner having to deal with the consequences of that show. Literal show.
He shit everywhere.
Still, I reckon that if Joey Chestnut puts his mind to it, there might surely be another Guinness World Record lurking somewhere on the right side of the U-bend. I have to say, I kind of just assumed that they threw it all up afterwards. Like they go to the toilet, stick their fingers down the throat and be like, and there is 50 hot dogs, because holy shit, that's a lot of stuff to process through your body. I'm savage. This has been an episode of Brain Blaze. You want to see another video just like this? I mean, not just like this, but different, but you'll still enjoy it. I'll personally choose it for you and link it on the screen right now. You're welcome. Thanks for watching.